Okay, we now go to Asia and what's happening in Asia. And of course, the most dramatic thing the past month has been the election of incoming President Rodrigo Duterte. Our guest, Senator Tatad, and former Secretary of Information too, during very critical times of our country's history, has some foreign policy advice for the Duterte government. And most striking, of course, during your time and Marcos's time, we opened diplomatic relations with China, as you said, the Soviet Union, and the rest of the world, the socialist bloc they called it then. And during that time, Marcos really commanded the respect of even Lee Kuan Yew,
Yes.
Mahathir, and so on, all these countries.
Zhou Enlai.
Zhou Enlai, you know.
Mao Zedong.
Well, of course, we know the disaster with Aquino. What do you see now with Duterte?
Well, we are very hopeful that the initial pronouncements we heard from the president-elect and from his foreign secretary designate would be sustained. There is less talk of promoting conflict. War avoidance, I think, should be the business of the day. And I believe that we can benefit, like the rest of the world, from the global approach to economic cooperation that we are seeing from Beijing. Beijing's concept of cooperation has gone far beyond Asia, the Pacific. It's about building fast railways, road networks, and the investment cooperation, the Asian Investment and Infrastructure Bank.
Yeah.
All these things, I think, should be given priority.
Yeah. From my latest readings on the internet, around $1 trillion is being invested by China in this One Belt, One Road, this new Silk Road. And I'm afraid we might be missing the boat again. As you mentioned in your column, we have missed the boat in the past 25 years on this great economic surge from Asia. Maybe Duterte and his dream of the circumferential railroad around Mindanao can also extend to the railroad all the way to the north. Like the time of Marcos, there was the Bridge of Love, San Juanico, that linked Luzon and the Visayas. Maybe we will now have a rail link all the way to Mindanao.
I think it's about time.
Yeah. And do you see a budding mutual admiration society between the two? Because Duterte called Xi Jinping a great leader.
So many others have called him that, no? And I don't think that needs much further demonstration, and because all the policies that have come out tend to support really a massive drive for peace and progress.
Yes. Well, you have other points here which we will bring up, including the option of neutrality and so on, but we might be getting ahead of this segment. Let us go to some of these latest developments in Asia. For example, the proposal of Beijing for joint ASEAN military drills. Let me read some of the important points. State Councilor and Defense Minister Chang Wan-chuan said in the Laotian capital of Vientiane during the China-ASEAN Defense Ministers' informal meeting, proposed a joint exercise with militaries from ASEAN nations on maritime search and rescue, disaster relief, and application of the Code for Unplanned Encounters at Sea. And they would like, China would like to invite the different militaries to conduct such joint ASEAN drill in Sanjiang, Guangdong province, and its coastal waters in the second quarter of 2017. Now, we are aware, of course, from the West, the Americans are trying to push for joint patrols and so on. Is this just part of the shadow boxing and...
Well, I suppose it's an idea that can be put on the table, which should be discussed. May not be implementable right now, but it should be put there and referred to. as an option for the future.
But this is one of the points I have been bringing up, although I have not been writing for 6 months now. I hope to get back into the writing circuit. That with President Duterte opening the door to more warm relations with China, and bilateral talks seems to be in the agenda. This is something that the Philippines can push for. Fisheries agreement with China,
Yes.
And then joint security patrols. Because
Yes.
if you have joint fisheries patrols, as China and Vietnam has in Beibu Gulf or Tonkin Gulf, that is shared responsibility, and maybe I'm pushing it a little, but that could be shared sovereignty.
Yeah. Well, yes, but we have to expand our point of view on this issue. We are known to have been a very strong ally of the United States, and we have so many bureaucrats who tend to restrict their thinking on these issues. So you have to work harder.
Well, I just heard from one of the our young China-Philippine relations expert, Lucio Pitlo III, who's with the Asian Center, and he called me a while ago, and there was just a conference that he attended where an assistant secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs seems to be getting into the mode of warmer words for China too. I don't know if your contacts in the foreign affairs sector have given you some indications of where they are going to.
Well, they're waiting for directions. They're prudent. So unless they see some initiative coming from on top, they will probably not come forward with their positions that may have been developed over the years.
Would you say that therefore ASEAN, with the new government coming in the Philippines, will now veer a bit further away from U.S. influence?
I think they're looking at developments in the Philippines very closely. They have been with the Aquino government, and they have seen how tightly this Aquino government has sustained the American position in the area.
Well, definitely it's not good news for the U.S. because, for example, Thailand has given the China-ASEAN drills the nod, and maybe there will be more votes in favor of greater ASEAN-China cooperation with the Duterte government in the ASEAN forum now.
I think there are more and more scholars coming forward with the point of view that you are seeing in some parts of ASEAN right now. For instance, I was just reading an article by a Professor Winchester, who is talking of the struggle for sphere of influence between China and the United States, and is pointing out that China does not want to replace the U.S. presence in the Asia Pacific. All that China wants is equivalence, to have its own due. I mean, could be the junior partner in the Asia Pacific, not really the superpower, but just the junior partner. And if the experts at the Pentagon and the think tanks in the United States would be a little more accommodating in their point of view, then the two powers could begin to really talk more productively for us.
Well, there's a coming event that will be very significant, and that is the arbitration issue.
Yes.
And the West has been trying, or the United States has been, in particular, has been engaged in this campaign to project China as eventually being isolated by the other countries. We've tried over the past few weeks to present the other side of the story, which is to say that Russia and India, including India, very important, because Inquirer came out with a report omitting India, But India has made a position with Russia that such issues as the South China Sea controversy should be settled bilaterally in negotiations. We have, of course, from the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Arab League, and so on. But now we have the African Union official, the AU Commission Deputy Chairperson, Erastus Muencha, who has urged countries directly concerned with such territorial controversies to embrace dialogue and peacefully resolve their disputes, such as the South China Sea. Of course, China has been on a campaign to invite other countries to make a position on this because the West has been trying to corner it.
Yeah.
What's your...
the multilateral approach is already there. We have the arbitration process going on. But I've always maintained that there should be a two-track approach to this. I mean, this is a pluralistic country where you have many points of view. There are sectors that want a multilateral approach. There are sectors, on the other hand, that also want a bilateral approach. So since it's already in court before the UN, okay, let that process ride. But whatever happens to that, the two parties will have to talk to each other. Whatever the decision of the arbitral committee, we will have to talk. For instance, the case is awarded to the Philippines. We'll have to talk to China. China will say, no, we don't recognize it. And then probably that is a good incentive for us to talk.
Okay, and even before the talks start, there are good signs already. There is a loosening of the restrictions in the Scarborough area. Fishermen are happy again from Zambales and Pangasinan.
They're allowed to fish now.
And so long as the talks begin, I think the controversy over the arbitration will go its own course and maybe slowly to sleep.
Well, I think what is important, Mantong, is for us to recall the origin of this issue. The maritime issue, conflict, has been there for years. And we never had any problems with each other.
That's right.
We're able to live together peacefully. Our cooperation was expanding. And in fact, when we went to China in 1965, we were the first ones in the area. We preceded the United States of America in opening diplomatic relations with China and in recognizing the One China policy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, those claims were already there.
Yes.
And they did not present an obstacle to deciding that we should have long-term cooperation with each other.
I'm sure, can recall the announcement of Obama about the Asia pivot, and then everything started to deteriorate after that. Yeah. So, well, anyway, this last item, we don't need to go into it deeply. The Shangri-La dialogue, which happens every year in Singapore, is kicking off this Friday, and the hotspot issue of the South China Sea will once again attract a lot of attention. The dialogue is believed to be dominated by the U.S., and of course, U.S. Defense Secretary Ashton Carter has been issuing many very militant, if not aggressive, statements. Have you any advice to the parties at the Shangri-La dialogue?
They won't listen to us. We are so far away. I've been to the Singapore dialogue, not the Shangri-La dialogue. And at one time, there was a top-ranking female general from PLA, from China. And that lady asked the late former Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew a question, what is your advice to us in China? And Lee Kuan Yew said, I am not in a position to advise China. China should be giving us advice. No? I think this Shangri-La dialogue is on stream. It's been there for years, so it will continue. But I think there are developments in weaponry which have been acknowledged even by the think tanks in Washington, D.C. I think I'm quoting
Yes.
one in my column
Yes, it's here.
today. There's this bilateral think tank in D.C. Saying that,
Center for a New American Century.
yes, the study released recently tried to show that the weapons technology and tactics developed by Russia, China, and Iran combined in a position to,
Dullens the cutting edge of American military technology.
Yes, and so it's time really to talk of how to ensure the peace.
Okay, so we'll proceed now to our discussion on China, Philippines, and focus on that.